Hello, hello. It's October 7th, day 80. So yesterday, I officially finished the last of the passes in the High Sierra. Woke up in the morning, did Forester Pass, and then I hiked a pretty big day to get into the town of Lone Pine. So I did 32.7 trail miles and then 4.1 on a side trail called Cottonwood Pass to reach a trailhead at Horseshoe Meadows, so about 37-mile day. I got there at like 6 p.m., maybe like a little bit earlier, 5:45, and I was fretting that at that point of the day there probably wouldn't be very many people left going down the mountain to Lone Pine. So Lone Pine's at 4,000 feet, and the trailhead at Cottonwood Pass or Horseshoe Meadows is at 10,000. So it's literally 6,000 feet of descent on a windy mountain road. I got lucky, and there was still a couple coming back from a day hike who were heading down into Lone Pine. They gave me a ride, very kind and generous. As I've probably said before, hiking is, through hiking especially, or just the hiking community, people show so much kindness for really no reason. They're not obliged to. You know, it's almost like a grace thing. Like a lot of times it's paying it forward because people have been in a scenario like you, hiking or backpacking, and got help from others. So I always appreciate the kindness of trail angels and people that give us rides out here and give us food. So I had a great night in Lone Pine. I was so happy to get there. It's a busy weekend. They actually have a film festival. So first thing I did was hightail it to a motel, and luckily got the last room for the night. Got some food then. Pretty exhausted, but got one video up last night. I'm still like 20 days behind with the videos, but hoping I'll be able to catch up at some point. And this morning I did laundry, did my resupply, a lot of other logistics, and I got a hitch once more out of town from a girl who's in Lone Pine and starting to climb up Whitney tomorrow. Mount Whitney, so that was awesome. It's really kind of her to do it. She just did it on her free time, didn't want any money for gas. So yeah, it's great to experience the kindness of others out here. And I just took another side trail back up to reconnect to the PCT. Try to fit as many miles in as possible today. See, but happy to be in and out of town pretty efficiently. And back hiking. Just got to the top of the ridge here. There's some pretty epic rock piles with a view out to the valley I was just in. So Death Valley is actually not terribly far away. I believe it's on the other side of the adjacent ridge. So it's actually kind of crazy because not too far from this ridge you have Mount Whitney, which is the highest point in the lower 48, and then a couple ridges over you have the lowest point in the lower 48. That's kind of a claim to fame of this area. Fun little scramble here to the top of the rock pile for a little more enhanced viewing. Nice sunset view here. I'm gonna take a break and eat a McDouble that I packed out from Lone Pine. I'm gonna be hiking late tonight, probably till close to like 10 p.m. Because the business that I rented this bear canister from is only apparently open through noon tomorrow, so I got to get there in time to return that, or else. And then the next day's Sunday and they're not open, which could really disrupt my plans. So it's gonna be a late one. Got an evening view of Mount Olancha here, which is the tallest peak in the southern Sierras. So it's actually above 12,000 feet. The trail doesn't go to the top, but it goes kind of around the edge. It gets above, I think, close to 11,000 feet again. So we go down about 1,000 here, and then back up another 1,000. So nice little surprise here. Well, I guess not a surprise, I've been noticing, but it's getting close to a full moon. So I'm gonna have a little bit of extra light for this night hiking that's ahead. So hopefully I won't have to use as bright of a setting on my headlamp. Good morning, it's day 81. October 8th, Saturday. So, it's currently honey season here. Right now I'm seeing some sort of critter. See if I can turn my high beams on and see what it is. Something on the smaller side. But yeah, I've already ran into the raccoon. Ran into two groups of hunters this morning already. Apparently it's hunting season. They're out for deer or bear. So that was interesting because I started at 5 a.m. Didn't expect to see anyone until sunrise. But apparently this is a pretty popular hunting area. Such a stark contrast has already developed between the high Sierras a matter of days ago to this low chaparral, high desert environment. So there's a reason they call the Southern California portion of the PCT the desert. It's not like we're not going through the Mojave Desert for the entire stretch. It's still the Pacific Crest Trail, so you stay at higher elevations, but it's certainly a much more dry environment. This is again one of those scenarios where they call this a river. This is the Kern River. It's still freezing cold in these valleys where the sun, until the sun hits them and they warm up, the temperature is, it's probably like just hovering above freezing still. We'll see, I don't know. I know that temperatures overnight in the desert are still pretty cold, but I would think that they'd be slightly more mild compared to the Sierras. And the Sierras was typically around freezing overnight. So we'll see what the case is here as we keep moving further south in California. These are the very first cacti I've seen. That to me is confirmation that we're entering Southern California. So we're hiking through this big, beautiful basin in the mountains called Kennedy Meadows. And this is widely acknowledged as, officially, I know I've probably said it multiple times, but this is like the place on the map that is considered where you transition from the Sierra section of the trail to the desert. So no doubt it looks like desert. Those classic PCT mountain downs again. Population 200. Desert hiking here. Looks too much like Tremors. Imagine I'm gonna get swallowed up. This might be our last view back to the Sierras. I don't know which peaks you can make out faintly in the distance, but they treated me well. Sunset over the Sierras. Southern Sierras. Hello. It's Sunday, October 9th, day 82 on trail. Yesterday I got to, I'm hiking by myself at this point, got to Kennedy Meadows south, returned my bear canister, so I got that little extra burden off my back and it's much less awkward to carry now. that was really nice. Took a midday break, got a little bit of food there, met a whole nother group of southbound hikers. Did something like 18 miles in to Kennedy Meadows by like 11:30, so I could return to Bear Canister in time. So that was a rough morning. And then about 20 miles out, so I had a big day. It's actually a little over 38 miles. It was like 38 and a half or so. But the terrain is, fingers crossed I might shoot myself in the foot here, but generally it's less rocky and not as tough as the Sierras. I feel like it's easier to cover ground so far. We'll see if that continues. There's still big climbs. Today pretty much consists of 3 fairly large climbs, 3 fairly large descents, but the desert certainly has a different sort of attractiveness about it. It's not the Sierras, but I've never been in an environment like this. So there's new plants I haven't seen before. And it's kind of neat too when you make the climbs. The tree coverage isn't so dense, and you can see pretty much everywhere you're going. It was a lot like that once you got up above tree line in the Sierras. But here it's like the entire time you're kind of in this like low evergreen forest. So anyhow, today I'll try to make a few phone calls at the end of the day. So I'm shooting for about 32 miles. I need to resupply as well. So there's a highway at Walker Pass. I'm gonna try to get there by 5:30ish and hitchhike into town. The town of Ridgecrest. It's a fairly large town, actually, probably the biggest I've been in for a while. Apparently has a Walmart. Works out pretty well. It's good mileage for me. I'm attempting to average in that low 30s for the rest of the hike, somewhere between like 32 and 34 miles a day. We'll see if I can keep it up. Doesn't even look like the desert. It's actually pretty green. Certainly a unique view compared to what we've gotten so far. Great valley views from up high here. Later on today, we'll be staying somewhere down there in town. I don't know where Ridgecrest is, but I think maybe what we can see there is called Onyx. It's wild to me coming from PA where it's so green that people live in an arid desert environment like this as their day-to-day, but hey, everyone's reality is different. I'll say one great thing so far about the desert is that it's almost like you're walking through a conservatory or like a botanical garden constantly. There's all sorts of, like I've said before, different new plants to see. I just love those succulents. So with the increased exposure here, especially in the desert and back in the Sierras where we're often above tree line, I've started being responsible and applying sunscreen every day. I also put some chapstick, SPF 15, on my lips. My lips get very dry and cracked. The UVs are pretty intense at high elevation. And I can definitely feel it. There was one day in the beginning of this year where I just noticed on a video actually that my nose was just fried. So I've been a lot more vigilant with sunscreen and sun protection lately. Just stopped and filtered a bunch of water from a small little spring. And there's not a lot of frequent water sources in the desert, so and a lot of times they're off trail a little bit. So I have a liter here, 0.7 here, and somewhere on the side of my pack another 0.7. I don't know where it is. You just saw my armpit, but anyways, it's over here to the left. Carrying about 2.5 liters of water. It's it's hard to know. You kind of have to gauge based on the temperature, obviously the distance, how much you're going to need. Yeah, you do have to be careful. Obviously, dehydration and falls are the number one causes of, we'll say, fatalities on the PCT in the past. I don't know how many there's been, not that many, but when they have occurred, it's been for those two reasons most frequently. So anyhow, I feel like I have a good safe amount of water for now. Reassess the situation as we go this afternoon. It is the hottest part of the day is coming up. So really enjoy seeing these Joshua trees. They're also unique. Just having me a little mid-afternoon snack here with the view down to the valley. Then I have about 2.5 hours to go to the road and hopefully I can get a hitch into town. Someone made note of it. I knew this was coming up, but I was in such a rush to get to the pass, I nearly just walked by this. But for us southbounders, this is 2,000 miles. And this is our view. Leaves 650 left, but 2,000's definitely a significant number in this hike and a lot of the big through hikes. Like in the AT, for instance, when you hit 2,000, you're almost done. You're not quite almost done at 2,000 here on the PCT, but it marks being about 80% done, which is pretty great. How cool are all these groves of Joshua trees? Such funky things. They really remind me of the truffalo trees in the Lorax. I think that's as close as it gets. Hello, it's Monday, October 10th, day 83. So last night I got into the town of Ridgecrest. I was anticipating it being a difficult hitch, but in our app, again, that I use called Far Out, a recent SOBO hiker, northbounder who had gotten off trail and lives in Ridgecrest, was offering to trail angel rides into town. So I was able to call her. I won't climb right now, so I get a little labor while doing this, but I was able to call her, got a ride into town, got there around 6 o'clock or so. I had to do a resupply is the reason I went in. And it's a bigger town. Everything was on like a main drag with a highway. By the time I got my stuff done, it was going to be poor likelihood, I think, of hitching back. I didn't want to waste time and when I could be resting. So I stayed in a motel. It actually worked out really nicely anyways, because there was a reliable form of transit back to the trail this morning via a local bus that runs from Ridgecrest to the town of Kernville. It cost me $3. Hopped on the bus at 8:30, back on trail slightly before 9. So, I'm shooting for 30-mile days. Starting at 9, that's definitely going to require some night hiking. We'll see what happens. I am all rested coming out of a motel. In a bed. I ate a lot of food last night. I ate wings, pizza, fries, ice cream. I'm sure I ate about 4,000 calories. And I got breakfast this morning before I hopped on the bus. All necessity. Even with all this massive food consumption, I was looking at my body in the mirror, and I feel like me having upped the mileage so much in the past couple weeks, I'm definitely starting to lose weight now, which is okay. It's towards the end of the hike. I can afford it. So I'll eat plenty afterwards and get it back. But anyhow, I'm going to attempt to still get 30 in today. Carrying a lot of water, probably the most I ever have. Probably about 3.5 to 4 liters. Reason being is it's 20 miles without water. And the next source isn't even natural. It's a cached source. Some local trail angels maintain a bunch of 5-gallon jugs for the hikers. Usually you don't want to obviously rely too heavily on the caches, but I can see in our app, I've had some cell service here and there, that there's tons of water there as of just yesterday, so it's trustworthy. Anyhow, we're in the desert. It's hot. I don't think there's gonna be as much climbing today as there was yesterday. Quite as much. So that at least I'm happy about. I've not encountered a snake for a while. This is not a rattler, as far as I can tell. That's definitely not a rattler. I don't think it's venomous. Doesn't have the slowed eyes, but you can see a little right there, little bump in it. Definitely had a meal at some point, just lounging in the sun. I'm gonna give him his space or her and go around here. He's kind of in the sun, kind of not. Didn't expect to see any in the shade here. I have to keep my eye out though. I'm not trying to step on any. Glad we were moving in this southeasterly direction, because behind us it looks a little scary. Got views back to the south. Out over the valley. I think you can see Ridgecrest down there where I stayed last night. And then see down the valley. Just pretty much barren desolation. We're headed down to a pass here with the water cache. I think we can climb back up this adjacent mountain and continue on to the south. It's been really nice recently. For a long time in Northern California and in the Sierras, there were absolutely no trail logs. So there's a lot more frequent trail logs now, which are basically just notebooks left in these protective cases along the trail to keep the rain off of them, so that you can know where hikers are. So it's really nice as a thru hiker because you know who's ahead of you, and for the people behind, same scenario. But also I think maybe there's more around the desert because obviously there's not much water around here, so it's a good way to safely keep track of hikers too. See where they signed in, make sure they made it to the next checkpoint. But I just really enjoy having lots of trail logs because I can kind of monitor my progress, if I'm catching up to anybody ahead of me, who's ahead of me. The only people at this point that I've met ahead of me are a guy named Rudy, met way back in Oregon. He skipped a few of the little fire sections and really started moving fast so that he can be home for his sister's wedding. I remember he said it was November 1st. And then the other two that I know are Mooch and Gasket, who are yo-yoers. So they already did the entire PCT northbound and are now yo-yoing back southbound, and they're just insane. Oh yes, I haven't seen a water cache to this scale since Greater Lake in Oregon. It's a very cloudy day for the desert. Definitely cast it in a different light than I've seen so far. So I do a lot of things diet-wise out here on trail that I would not do off trail. One of them, for instance, is carry a big bag of Lifesaver gummies. So, as a dentist, of course, I do not condone this on an everyday basis. But out here, processed sugars just hit different. You're just burning them constantly, so your body just craves them. And I never eat candy outside of hiking, but during hiking, I can't resist. And these Lifesaver gummies, I've got to admit, they are amazing. So I had an interesting campsite yesterday. I camped here in what you could call this Joshua Tree fort up on the ridge. So as I was walking last night, I was prepared to walk a little bit after dark because I had a late start at about 9 a.m. To get the miles in. But I'm on this ridge, and to my east, there's lightning, big storm clouds, and I hear thunder. To my west, there's really dark clouds as well. And I looked at the forecast that had some service at times, and there was predicted chance of some storms. So this is a really exposed area, and this was really the best shelter I could find. So it wasn't raining, but I set up early anticipating that it might. It didn't, fortunately, so my stuff isn't wet. I wish there was a little bit more light to show you how cool this campsite is, but I thought it was a pretty sweet spot to set up, even if I would have liked to hike a little bit longer. So you can see the glow of some cities in the distance. Getting started nice, fresh and early here. It's probably about 20 after 5. I'm gonna try to do a 40-mile day today to make up for yesterday. I only got about 29 in. Trying to average well above 30 for the rest of the hike, so time to get started. Morning, it's Tuesday, October 11th. A beautiful glow here on the mountains at about 6:30 a.m. This section of desert's been really neat. I've enjoyed the Joshua trees. A lot of spiky plants though. It's stabbed fairly routinely walking along the trail here. I'll have to show you. I don't know if you can see it or not on the camera, but yesterday I was setting up my tent in the little fort of Joshua trees. I stabbed the top of my head. Didn't realize, but it must have bled through my hat. So anyhow, I did come out of town yesterday a little late, starting at 9. I wanted to get 30 or more in. I got about 29. Had to stop because I was worried about the weather. Wanted to be set up before possibility of heavy rain or thunderstorm came through. So I'm gonna try for some more miles today. Here's a sample water source in the desert. Not the pristine, flowing, crystal clear waters of the Sierras or the Northern Cascades. Just seems like some seep that someone decided to put a concrete wall up and provide a little poling for the hikers. So yeah, it actually, when you filter it, it doesn't look too bad. It tastes pretty good. Now this is kind of an exciting water source. It's like a little aquarium in here. I think it feeds a spring for cattle, but it's got to be 2-3 feet deep. It just looks like I'm at a fish place buying some aquarium plants. A lot of wind energy. Just doing a little nighttime filtering here. Going on 9 o'clock. Got 40 miles in so far. Got to go a little bit further to a campsite. But this kind of cattle trough spring is serving as the last water source before highway tomorrow morning. So I don't have a pillow along, but what I do in the evenings is I unload my, not everyone has one, but I have kind of a clothing stuff sack. So I put a different pair of shorts on in the evening, try to keep some of the gross, nasty oils off of my quilt. A pair of wool sleeping socks. When it's cold, I'll put my wool leggings on. I've got a micro fleece here. I'll sometimes wear if it's cold as well. But what I do importantly is I take my puffy jacket and I stuff it into my clothing bag, and that makes a really delightful pillow out here. So I have been sleeping well, actually, better than usual, and it might partially be due to that. It's Wednesday, October 12th, day 85. Started around 5:45 this morning, and been rewarded with a very nice orange sunrise. I managed to get 40 miles in yesterday. Big camp up here on the ridge. I learned why there are windmills. It's a pretty windy spot. I did have some coverage and protection from some bushes. Also used some guy lines and really tied out my tent. Made it pretty taut so it wasn't flapping or vibrating too much overnight. Slept pretty well. I was gonna make a heroic effort to get up at like 3 a.m. so I could catch the early morning bus in Tehachapi, but I was pretty tired after yesterday, and I gotta know my limits, not push myself too hard, save enough for the next day. So today I have about 16 and a half in Tehachapi. It's got an airport in view and wind farms on both sides of the ridge. Just hiking along the highway, you know. Almost to where I actually have a ride range with the Trail Angel. I got a hold of a Facebook page for Trail Angels from Tehachapi, and I should be able to get into town. Hopefully have enough time to grab lunch, do my resupply, then be on the 2 p.m. bus back to the trailhead.